cramming us all into cities to maximize things like urban growth, light urban transit, getting us out of our private vehicle ownership, out of our private property.
Right.
Does that all sound good?
When you're about to track 9 billion people, and in a province like British Columbia, where 85% of British Columbians now live in urban populations.
They are also convinced that everybody's against them, and that therefore it's fair for them to cheat just a little bit. And they'll cheat on the facts, but more importantly, they'll cheat on the rules. And that's what we've seen time and again with regard to elections, because they believe that they're victims and that they're serving a higher purpose, and therefore the normal rules don't apply. That's the number one danger that we're facing with. I believe that our only hope in the world is to follow international law. Follow international law. The United Nations. Hold on, you've asked the question. If you want to ask the question and give the answers, just let me know. I'll give you the microphone. But if you've asked the question, why don't you give me a chance to give the answer in that case? Canada is still part of the United Nations. The United Nations Charter provides that one of the basic things that you're supposed to do as an international community is to protect citizens of a country from attacks, gratuitous attacks by the government.
You're protecting citizens by bombing them?
Well, let's look at the situation as it existed before, and let's look at what existed now. International organizations have just completed their assessment of the elections that took place in Libya. We've replaced, because he was attacking his own citizens.
It was stunning video posted on the internet for all to see, and it came with a charge that police masqueraded as protesters at this week's Montebello summit to incite violence. Tonight, an equally stunning admission from Quebec's provincial police. Susan Bonner reports.
Everybody! Busted. 3 Quebec provincial police officers, identities masked, one carrying a huge rock, nabbed for infiltrating a peaceful protest at Montebello. The tip-off came from a union leader who noticed riot police standing by despite the obvious weapon. He accused the men of being undercover cops trying to provoke a riot and end the protest. The men were removed but never charged. After 2 days of questions, the Sûreté du Québec issued a news release late today confirming, yes, the men are police officers.
Gaddafi, and we now have an election that international organizations all concur was extremely fair and a model for an election in a country that's never had any democratic process before. So frankly, between having a dictator there who was indeed subjugating and killing his own people, replacing him with a democratic system, I consider that to be progress, and you're free not to agree.
They killed thousands.
What's the real reason to uphold the International Monetary Fund to enforce a currency on him when he was going to make a free, debt-free, interest-free currency?
Honestly, I think that to believe that the International Monetary Fund was behind the NATO attack in Libya is a theory that not too many people would agree with. Over here, please.
What do you think about the invasion of Libya and the bombing of people with depleted uranium? Is that a good idea for us to be doing? You have no comment on that?
Got a comment.
Are you concerned about the women and children that were killed in Libya during that invasion? What about contaminating the area with depleted uranium?
That's harassment.
That is a question.
That is harassment. Guys, come on, have some class and verify your fucking sources, for Christ's sakes. Conspiracy nuts? What are you, nuts? You goddamn
Do you think uranium is
Seriously,
a conspiracy?
do you think that there's any proof that these people want to shoot depleted uranium at people?
Oh, they're almost certainly being used in Libya. If you examine some of the entrance wounds on some of the tanks, on some of the T-72s that I've seen, they're classic depleted uranium ammunition wounds, relatively small holes, and then exploded outward, because when the DUA goes inside the tank, it explodes into a fireball of about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is what produces all the dust and the stuff that blows all over the place and gets on people's clothes and they breathe in, etc.
But I thought this was supposed to be a humanitarian intervention, right? We're there to protect the people. I mean, what does it say about this country and the NATO allies if we're essentially going in to protect the Libyans but using something that is so devastatingly dangerous to human life?
Well, it really should be banned. I mean, this depleted uranium ammunition is really in the category of poison gas or dum-dum bullets. It's the kind of weapon that really should come under the Geneva Conventions, because not only is it radioactive, that is, not only can you breathe it in and therefore it produces bone marrow changes and chromosomal changes and that kind of thing. Uranium is an extremely toxic metal. Uranium DUA rounds go very deep into the ground because they're so heavy. They there get into, according to the World Health Organization, they get into the water tables. And so people are drinking this stuff.
No, there is not.
Is it being used?
Why are you accusing people?
Is it being used?
Prove it. I would like you to prove it.
You got a name and number? I'll give you all. I'll email.
Not with conspiracy crap. I want a piece of the depleted uranium found on.
There are people that went and cleaned up in Desert Storm.
Yeah, that's Desert Storm. That's Desert Storm. That's on Bush. That's on Bush.
That was depleted uranium. That's how it was done. The same people.
You guys got to take your bloody tinfoil hats off. All your shit is
war crimes. It's tinfoil hats.
stolen. You're supporting the Republicans, buddy.
Yeah, you're a loser, buddy. Ron Paul 2012.
Republican. Same people told you climate change, didn't they?
Did you get that on camera too?
I did. Yeah.
What do you think about
I'm not going to answer it again.
Why aren't you?
I'm not
have no comment on
you've had the answer.
being bombed in Libya?
No. I totally agree with the leader.
You agree with the leader.
Absolutely.
So you agree with using depleted uranium in Libya and killing
I agree with what my leader said. Absolutely.
I see. Okay, thank you.
I want to say also from my very strong little environmental heart, little environmental heart, little environmental heart, grizzly part. We in British Columbia know something about grizzlies. And what do grizzlies do? They look after their children and they protect their territory. Little children.
That you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. So the conservatives actually believe they're entitled to their own facts. So, no young person who is capable of accomplishing their university studies should ever, in a country as rich as Canada, be denied that right for monetary considerations.
So you don't support Region 21?
No, it's very different things. I'm not saying I don't support the UN attentions. I'm not saying I don't support the UN attentions. I'm not saying I don't support the UN attempts. But what I'm saying is the only way to produce an enforceable result is to have a
hollowing out the capacity of our government to provide the services to the public that it was always there for. You know, when you look at the whole pyramid, when you look at the whole pyramid of public administration, it exists to do ultimately one thing, right? It exists to provide a direct service to the public. So that's the last thing you touch. If there are tough budget choices to be made, you preserve the direct service to the public. Our governments take care of people. The number one reason we're there is to protect the public, to help people who are in need. And infrastructure, things that cities aren't able to do in Canada anymore because there's no tax base. They've got 40% of the infrastructure and 8% of the money. They're just not making it. Let's make it a priority of an NDP government to tell Canadians that we will add value to our own resources here.
Thomas Mulcair's NDP have some risky economic theories.
Make them pay now for what they're doing.
Their dangerous economic experiments include a carbon tax that'll raise the price of everything, including gas, groceries, and hydro. Mulcair's NDP even oppose trade agreements that'll increase exports. Risky theories, dangerous economic experiments.
Rule by voluntary consent.
I think we always have to start from the position that we're going to win the election based on the current system. That's why when we talk about, for example, proportional rep, which is something the NDP has stood for a long time, we have to understand understand that it's something that can be put in our program, but we have to win under the current system.
Okay,
we can't wish it away. We can't change it.
So if we think that the PC party is corrupt, for example, are you going to give us the option to withdraw from that system?
I think that you have to understand that anything that you would be describing would be profound constitutional change, and you've got very serious constraints on how those changes can be made. Again, you have to deal in the real world, not in the theoretical.
Okay, but it wouldn't require a huge change. All you'd have to do is change Section 2D of the Canadian Charter of Rights, which defines the freedom of association, and I think people should have the freedom. Well, if what you have to sell people is so good, then people should have the right to choose whether to have that or not. And
that's what they get to do in elections.
No, that's not a choice. That's every 4 years.
My question is,
Canadian system, a network of green renewable energy.
And in the future, printing will be the technology to produce electronics. So I'm very sure about this.
The speakers use special inks that conduct electricity and vibrate when an electric current passes through. Layer upon layer is carefully laid down, and the process can be used on plastic as well as paper, costing only pennies a page.
The printing process doesn't just allow you to produce speakers, such as this one. You can also print off electricity-generating solar cells by the kilometer,
costing only pennies a page.
You can also print off electricity-generating solar cells by the kilometer.
We've got a lot of the technology already. We have some of the most consistent wind currents in the world, for example. Quebec has 3,000 megs, that's 3,000 times a million watts of wind right now, put in phase with existing hydropower, because there's no power in a wind turbine. There's the ability to produce energy by taking the power from the wind, but it's less constant. Those two are now being able to be put in phase, produce very constant green renewable power. Yesterday we saw what happened in Calgary during a very bad weather situation where it got very hot, and the system came very close to completely breaking down. So I think that it's something that we owe to ourselves. We are capable of using all our experience and expertise and putting something very positive on the agenda for the next federal election, which is having that national vision. I think that one of the solutions, especially with the second part, with regard to mines, is to make sure that we require Canadian companies to respect standards that we expect of them here in Canada, even when they're operating.
We are Change Victoria, doing what we do best. We came to a federal NDP event for the leader of the NDP, Thomas Mulcair. We've been here in the belly of the beast, uvic. I'm standing right in front of their propaganda sustainability wall. I'm sure if we look at some of these, we'll find people trying to secretly implement Agenda 21 programs. We confronted Mulcair on a few things like Agenda 21, the bombing campaign in Libya, although he kept trying to switch it and say that it wasn't a bombing campaign, it was a liberation campaign. We freed the shit out of those Libyans, you know. Now they're going on about their fake election. He full out called some of the info that we had false, that the rebels were not CIA plants, and he said that the Gaddafi regime was actually attacking its own citizens, which was the pretext to go to war, which upon later information they found out that that actually wasn't true, and they were, I believe it was Russian planes that were firing. It wasn't Gaddafi. Anyways, you know, we confronted him on Agenda 21. We confronted a lot of these politicians on Agenda 21. This whole sustainable development, sustainable environment, sustainable economy, when you hear these politicians talk about sustainable anything, they are literally talking about Agenda 21. You need to go and ask them if they're planning on implementing Agenda 21. I encourage you to read Agenda 21. There is a specific part in the Agenda 21 that declares what is unsustainable development, and included in that is hydroelectric dams. Well, BC, we use hydroelectric dams for most of our electricity. To have the UN Agenda 21 come in and tell us that we now cannot have dams because they're unsustainable, where are we going to get our electricity from?